Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I'm Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is T.L. McCoy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Why don't you just start us off by telling me a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So, most recently, I released a book called Delilah versus the Ghastly Grimm, and it is doing quite well. It's actually hit three different bestseller lists on Amazon. The one that's probably most important is Children's Epilepsy Health. The book is a middle grade fantasy about a young girl who has a seizure disorder. And after a life threatening seizure, an indigo door is opened in her mind, and she steps through that door and is catapulted to a world of wonder and excitement, but also danger, where she has to battle a villain called the Ghastly Grimm. And I wrote the book because of inclusion. I don't feel like there is enough on the market for children that has proper representation. My grandchild is my inspiration. I actually wrote the book for her. The name of the book is Delilah versus the Ghastly
Mm-hmm.
Grimm, and it was written for her. Her name is Delilah. She was diagnosed with what's called Dravet syndrome. It is a rare and sometimes catastrophic seizure disorder. It is not the same as epilepsy, the way most people think of epilepsy. The seizures can be daily. They can be multiple times a day. They can be extremely long, 40, 50-minute seizures.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these kids don't, it can be fatal for them. Some of them, I think the last study I saw, and things may have changed since I saw this, was like 10 to 20% don't live past their 20s. So she was diagnosed with this disorder. And when I came across a study that said that there were only 3.4% of children's books with disabled protagonists, I knew that what I was doing, which was writing an adult suspense thriller, I knew I had to put that aside to start working on this, because I don't feel comfortable with that. Now, those statistics may change. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was it was a little bit of an older study, but I haven't seen anything new since then that has told me it's really improved much. But clearly there is a problem with inclusion and representation. And the thought of that was kind of eating away at me. And so I began writing Delilah versus the Ghastly Grimm for my grandchild, and it's kind of turned into a mission of fighting for better representation and inclusion in children's books.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's start off. What is your definition of inclusion?
So if you go to the dictionary for inclusion, it's about being a part of, groups and so forth. But I think it's more than that. I think it also it's more about individuals and how they perceive themselves as being a part or left out of
Mm-hmm.
circumstances. So for me, like with regard to writing, there are a lot of books on the market for children. There are tons of books on the market for children. But how many of those books allow, people like my grandchild who to see themselves in those stories, like envision themselves in those stories? So for
Mm-hmm.
me, inclusion when it comes to literature is providing that kind of feeling for them, where they can actually feel empowered by the stories that they read instead of separated by them.
Sure. Um, well, how long have you been an author?
So I have I've been writing a really long time, but this is really my first debut with a
Sure.
children's book. My goal was originally to write a suspense thriller, because during the day I work as a psych nurse, so it seemed in line with that. And I was in a very great program where I got to interact with other authors and people who are in the industry. But as I was writing it and I came across that study, I knew it wasn't the right direction to go. I feel
Sure.
like a calling towards this mission, to be honest with you. And I think, and I've mentioned this to others in the past, where I was a school director for a school for children with disabilities long before my grandchild, or before, not really long before, but before my grandchild was diagnosed with
Mm-hmm.
Dravet syndrome. And then even afterwards, when I was writing this book, I had this strange dream of a boat called the Nord, and I included it in the book. I had the book edited. It was completely and it went through like 30 edits, and it was completely done and ready to be released when I started doing research on organizations that are actively involved in helping those with special needs. And I came across an organization called the Nord. And I thought that was so strange because it almost feels like I was guided towards this mission for better inclusion and for working with individuals who may have, and I hate to use the word disability, because even in the book, I say it's a so-called disability because really it's part of her strength. Right. It's not a weakness for her. And I think that's true for many kids. Like a lot of times they're just not the same as us, but that doesn't mean that they're lesser or weaker.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. How old is your granddaughter?
So she is only 3 years old.
Okay.
And I considered making it a younger book, but it didn't seem to go well with the story that I had envisioned. Yeah. So then I decided to make it a middle grade book, but she actually loves it. And if you check out our social media, you'll see her. She hugs it. She carries it around. She loves this book. We're not reading it to her yet because there are some darker elements that will have to come in time, but she knows the book is for her.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, I have a daughter. Her name is Cecilia. She's 22. She does have epilepsy, and she actually, she was over this weekend, ended up having a grand mal seizure, which I had to give her meds to stop and get all the emergency professionals. I told you, but we moved into a new house, so I feel like she wanted to meet all the neighbors and everybody in town and see how the emergency responders work. So we figured that out, unfortunately. But yeah, so my daughter has epilepsy and seizures. She's had 90-minute grand mal seizures, airlifted multiple times. So not the same as what your granddaughter has, but I can certainly empathize with pieces of it for sure. So thank you for writing the book and putting representation out there.
Well, so Dravet syndrome has to be diagnosed through genetic testing.
Okay.
So I feel like some people who may have seizures may not know that they have Dravet syndrome if they haven't had the formal genetic testing. It is something that is kind of required. I believe it's required. It has to, there are steps for that diagnosis. A lot of times what's the flag is that the seizures start during the first year of life.
Okay.
So my grandchild had her first seizure during her first year of life. And that's usually one of the red flags that something is going on.
Yeah. Cece, she had her first seizure. Well, we found out she was born in October. We found out in December two of her aunts worked at the Mayo Clinic as nurses, and they noticed her staring. So they said you should get her checked out. And then January, we went and did some appointments, and I'm pretty sure that was when she was diagnosed with epilepsy, we knew she was having seizures. We did genetic testing. This was 22 years ago. So, I don't know if they would have tested for that at that time or, what we did test for, but we did have some genetic testing done just to see. And hers was caused by a stroke that she had before, during, and after birth. So that was what we ended up finding out, I think.
I hope she's okay now. Is she all right?
Yeah, she's okay. Yep, she uses a wheelchair to get around and needs help with daily living tasks. But yeah, she's happy. We took her to a Post Malone Jelly Roll concert a couple nights ago up in Minneapolis.
I bet she loved that.
She did love that, and we're up till 2:00. I'm still trying to recover, but yeah, she loves music, so she's doing good. Saying you're used to seizures happening is kind of weird, but it's still like she had one the other day, like I said, and it kind of still is shocking, but and she's had them before, so you get kind of used to it, I guess you could say, but it's still not fun as a parent seeing something happen that you can't.
How to respond to that. You become an expert on how to quickly respond. I was actually at a theme park, and because of my experience with my grandchild and the fact that I'm a nurse, I was the first to respond when I saw a child having a seizure at a theme park. And everyone else was kind of like they didn't know what to do. Yep. But then when you and I see this every day, you're like immediately like, do this and this, you do that. And let's get this worked and get the person safe,
right.
kind of thing. So, and I believe you help take care of your daughter, correct? Yep. Yeah. That's very nice of you. That's very,
thank you.
She's very lucky to have such support.
Thank you. Yeah, even when she was having the seizure, though, it's like I know you need to like keep track of the start time and how long it lasts and when you administer meds. And I was here by myself, so you're trying to like call 911, talk to them, deal with her, like keep track of times, and it's like there's so many. It's like like time, like it seems different in that situation. Like it seems like it was just.
It feels like forever.
It feels like forever, and it could only be a little bit of time. So it's important to remember the times, but it's hard to like do all the things at once.
It is. And it is very important. The doctors like to know the time because it helps them understand, like what if maybe a medication adjustment is in order, or a lot of times it'll be a certain amount of time you don't give meds. And then when you hit a number, then you should start giving meds, kind of thing. So checking the time is very important on that. So that's, but I get what you're saying as far as time feels different. When I say these kids have like 30, 40-minute seizures. If you've ever been present for like a 2-minute seizure, it feels like a lifetime because you're concerned for the person. You're worried about the person. You want them to be okay. And when they hit a certain level, a certain time frame, it becomes dangerous. Then you're more at risk for something like being intubated or something like that. So you do get more concerned with the longer seizures, status epilepticus.
Yeah, like I said, she's had a couple 90-minute grand mals, and those are not. It's just
that's a long time. That must have been very stressful for your family.
Yeah, it's not fun, and then you can't stop it. And you want to stop it, and it's not fun.
And that's the heart of it. These are things we cannot control. Yep. I think the doctors are doing the best they can with medications. Not all medications work. We've gone through several different medications to find the right one that's managed to help us. Delilah has been seizure-free for a year, thanks to she's actually on what's called Fintepla, which is not a well-known medication for seizures. Most people know Keppra.
Yep.
But Keppra was not staving them off. So we did some research. We tried benzos, which is hard to put a child that young on benzos. You worry because when you take them off, they have withdrawals. So it's scary because you want them to have the best possible lives, but you're also worried about the effects of the medications you give them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, she's been taking seizure meds since she was 3 months old, and many different ones. So she's been on them a long time. She always takes them with pudding, and she thankfully most times, there's very few times she won't take them, so that's been fortunate. But she's been on a lot of meds. We looked into having brain surgery to see if they could remove that part of the brain, but it was from multiple places, so they couldn't do that. So we long time ago went through a lot of that stuff. But she's doing great, loves music, loves going for walks outside, so we're looking forward to warmer days where we can get outside and go for walks. So.
Well, I think that's beautiful, and I'm so glad to hear that she's doing so well.
Yeah, thank you. So it looks like you have your own publishing company. Do you want to talk about why you took that leap of not only writing but also starting your own publishing company?
Yeah, it really was for this book, but also because my goal is to kind of connect with other authors who want to write things that'll be more inclusive. Yep. I wasn't opposed to the traditional route, but the traditional route also takes a very long time and you lose some of the control over the story. And so there were a lot of factors that came into play. I was actually convinced by a writer director who mentioned, that she was thinking about starting her own publishing house, and she was going over the reasons, and that the conversation just kind of stuck in my mind. And I could have continued to, seek out traditional routes, but then I decided, you know what, I really want to maintain control of the story. I really want it to be a mission, I guess, this whole process. So that's why we decided to go ahead and start Blue Round Book Group for this, but also so that we can connect with other writers who are of the same mission, we're in alignment. They want to create a different kind of atmosphere. And because I feel like we do hear that things are improving with representation, but if you look at the stats, it's not improving enough or fast enough.
Right. Are there like I don't know what the right word is, like book conventions or publishing conventions where you can maybe go and like set up a table and try to, find other authors or other people to, help grow your mission?
I'm sure there are.
Okay.
So I am new to the whole publishing business,
Sure.
and there's going to be a learning curve there. Right now, we're in the middle of the book hasn't technically officially launched. It launches fully on the 27th, but
Sure.
we did an early release, and during that early release, it did really well and has managed to, hit those bestseller lists, and it's won 3 different awards so far, and it's
Awesome.
been getting 5-star reviews from like
Yeah.
readers' favorite and customers and so forth. So it's doing really well. But my goal is to connect more with other writers and
Sure.
with audience members. And so we've been looking at maybe library conventions, but I also have a full-time job.
Right.
So I'm kind of doing what these big 5 publishing companies have 5 departments to do by
Sure.
myself.
Yeah.
So, I have to, it's going to be a period of time before I can really accomplish all of those pieces, but I will address them
Yeah,
as we
for
move
sure.
forward with this project.
Right. Yeah, is this like a series with the Delilah book? Is that like a series, or is this like a one and done book, or what is the plan with that?
I did leave it as an open ending.
Okay.
And the goal is to write a second part. And I actually have written 15,000 words. Now, middle grade books are not as long
Okay.
as adult books. So it'll probably be in the area of 55 to 65,000 words by
Okay.
the time that it's done. But this book took me about a little over a year between when I started writing and by the time it was through its last edit. It
Sure.
went through 2 separate edits. One of the editors was the editor of The Hunger Games, and one of them was a writer and literary agent, because I really wanted to make sure if I was going to be starting my own company and releasing this book that it was really solid and professionally done. So
Yeah.
I really took the extra steps to make sure it was good to go.
That's great. What is your process for writing? Do you like go to a coffee shop, or what? Like if you're going to get in the mood to write, like what do you do?
I don't drink coffee. I drink
Okay.
Diet Coke, which
There you go.
probably not the best choice in the world, but it's so good. But usually it's funny because some of the stuff I will get right from being with my grandchild. So a lot of the book are elements from our interactions. Like,
Okay.
for example, in the fantasy world, she has to go before the Kangaroo Council. Well, she likes kangaroos. That's how that ended up in there. And she doesn't like snakes. So there's a piece in there about that.
That's great.
Exactly. So a lot of it came from that. But before I write, a lot of time, I will get up first thing in the morning to write because I tend to be most creative. So it'll be very early. We're talking 4:30 a.m., 5 o'clock. That's usually when I start writing because I tend to be most creative then. But I have a lot of ideas from going for like a couple mile walks or a bath or a shower or something like that. A lot of the ideas will come from that. And then sometimes they'll come from my dreams where I'll just be drinking, going to bed, and then I'll wake up and I'll have these ideas and I'll incorporate them in there. But a lot of the story revolves around my grandchild because the book is written for her.
Right.
It's meant to be a book about inclusion, and I wanted it to be about that and be really for her. And my goal is, if it makes profit, publishing is very expensive, so I don't know that it will ever make profits. But if it does make profits, my goal is for a portion to go to some kind of organization for people with disabilities so that it has a greater purpose.
Right. I love that. How common is Dravet syndrome?
It is not common. It's a rare disorder. And in fact, I think I was on a different podcast, and I haven't been on many. This is my 4th, where the person was a professional in the field and they hadn't heard of it.
Okay.
Because it's not a very common disorder. It's basically a genetic disorder that's caused by a mutation in the SCN1A gene that affects sodium channels. And then because those sodium channels are so important to regulations in the brain, that it causes a disruption that results in the seizures.
Okay.
They are working that some companies are working to try and find a cure or some kind of resolution to it. I know that they're working on a lot that way.
Sure.
Their genetic treatments aren't working, I believe, because of the size of the vectors is problematic. And, when it comes to the brain is a little bit harder to treat because you have a blood-brain barrier. So medication treatments can affect that too. So it is being worked on, and there are some promising studies out there, but we're not there yet.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have other grandchildren?
I do not. Delilah is my one and only. I do
One
have
and
two
only?
children, but Delilah is from my daughter. And I like to call Delilah. So there's a piece in the book where the villain uses shadow and mist as his power. That's his dark power. And I always say my Delilah, my grandchild, is the light in the shadow and the mist, because she has been really this whole thing with her and watching her go through therapy every single week. She goes to therapy every single week, occupational, speech, physical therapy. And they actually just dropped down a little bit on the occupational therapy because she's doing a lot better. Watching her do this with such grace and happiness, she really is the light in the shadow and mist to us.
Yeah.
So it's been a blessing to our lives. And I really believe that, when we first got the diagnosis and would sit with the neurologist and hear things like we needed to manage our expectations. I'm not really that kind of person where I'm like, we're going to do fight, do all that we possibly can to make things, as good as they possibly can be. So my family and I have worked really hard to make sure she gets, the therapies that she needs. We work with her on our own separately. And she has made tremendous progress. Some of these kids never are able to walk without assistance. She can, and she's 3 now. And some of these kids can't feed themselves. They need care support. She can feed herself. We're dropping down on occupational therapy. Her speech is still behind as far as articulation, but she can comprehend and do speech. She has the same level, I believe, but it's just the articulation isn't there. So I can understand her, but the average person cannot.
Yeah.
So we are working on that now. And it's the way Dravet syndrome works is similar to autism, where it's like a spectrum. So you could have kids that have the extreme version where they won't be able to walk, talk, and will need total care for their whole entire lives. Or you could have the other side where they may be able to do all of those things and just be able to get there through some extra time in therapies. We don't know exactly where we will end up, but we're going to continue to provide her with the support she needs. And I hope that those who also have family members who are experiencing this get the support that they need. I will say that there are lots of sites out there, the Dravet Syndrome Foundation, where you could get plenty of information and support links.
Yeah. Sounds like you're, excuse me, sounds like you're very involved in your granddaughter and daughter's life and experience. It's really great that you're there for them and helping support them during this time. Has your, you said you're a nurse, so has that experience, your job, like how has that maybe helped the situation? Like maybe stuff that you wouldn't have known, or ways to like help your granddaughter and daughter through this that you may have not known otherwise?
They probably would have known otherwise, because my daughter is in the medical field. She actually, she's an anesthetist. So if you ever go to surgery, she'd be the one giving you the meds. So she probably even knows more than I do.
Sure.
To be honest with you, I used to be a professor of criminal justice. And when we moved, I was looking for work, and it was hard to find related work. So I just decided to go back to school and become a nurse. So I haven't actually been a nurse that long, and I'm a psych nurse. So that's more my specialty. And whereas my daughter, because she works in an OR, she is very knowledgeable when it comes to medications. And in fact, I will credit her. She has been on a mission, tons of research. She is the one who found Fintepla and presented it to the neurologist and kind of fought for it. And he was wonderful. My granddaughter's neurologist has been just
awesome.
godsend. And so he's been very supportive. And then when they put my grandchild Delilah on Fintepla, we've been able to control those seizures. Her last one, not this Christmas that just passed, but the Christmas before that, she actually had a seizure on Christmas Day. That was the last time she's had a seizure.
Oh.
We've been able to control it. Now we still have to be careful. I mentioned to you that, we wanted to go somewhere, but if it's too hot, we can't do that because it can be a trigger.
Right.
We use cooling vests and things like that. So there are products out there that can also help to prevent, which is the goal.
That's great. How can we use empathy to be more inclusive?
So that is the goal, isn't it? I think a lot of people are empathetic. I think that there's just not a lot of information out there on some of the experiences and the way people feel when they go through these things. So the vast majority of people I've come across with have been incredibly supportive and definitely on board with more inclusion and representation. And so they have been very empathetic. I was at work one day when my grandchild had a pretty significant seizure, and it was, very difficult to be there. And this is a story of incredible empathy. My coworkers literally said, "Stop what you're doing, come here." And my two coworkers grabbed my hand and they did a prayer circle with me for my grandchild. That's empathy.
Yeah.
That's true God-send empathy that I was incredibly grateful for. And I said they were one of the biggest reasons why I never wanted to leave the organization, with them being present there, because that kind of support and outpouring of love, that's what my grandchild needed. And that's what others need and deserve. And we should all be doing it together. I mean, that's really what kind of society I want to live in. And I feel like a lot of people would prefer that as well. And so I think that by taking actions like what you're doing right now with your podcast to spread the word about inclusion, that shows that you have empathy for those who deserve to be included. So I feel like there is a lot of people who are on board with that. There's just not enough information out there. And that's the goal. We need to start getting more information out there so that people understand what is happening.
Yeah, for sure. What is one tip you can share to help our listeners be more inclusive today? So just something anybody can start doing right now to be more inclusive.
It could be something as small as maybe volunteer so that you can have a better understanding of what other people are going through. It can be if you want to just read up and learn more on a website like the Dravet syndrome website, or it could be you could help support families who may not have enough money for the treatments that might be needed, because there are a lot of organizations where you can donate to. So there are all different ways that you can show support for families who have special needs family members.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to share what's the best place to connect with you?
Absolutely. I am on www.blueroundbookgroup.com. That is my website. If you would like my book, Delilah versus the Ghastly Grimm, this middle grade fantasy book, it was written for my grandchild. It's about a girl with a seizure disorder. It is on Amazon on sale for $7.99 right now. It's early release, so that is a sale price. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Now, these are new accounts. I'll be honest with you. I was not a very public person. I was a very private person.
Okay.
So these are all like new accounts.
Yep.
Plus, I'm a psych nurse,
Yep.
I didn't really put myself on social media. So I really just did it for the book group and for the book. So they're very new accounts. But if you go to my website at the very bottom, you'll be able to click on any of the social media sites.
How did you come up with a name for your publishing company?
So I actually put it to a vote.
Okay.
There is a line. I had several lists, and that particular one came from a line from the book.
Okay.
Blue round, like you're from the blue round, like meaning Earth. And everybody except a select few chose that one. So I said, okay, blue round it is.
Going with that. There you
Yep.
go. Awesome. Ready for the last question?
Sure.
Do you like Spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
To be honest with you, I've never had it.
Never had it?
Nope, never had it, never tried it. And what's funny is I kind of grew up poor,
Okay.
to be honest, like where we didn't have a lot of money, but we never had anything like Spam or anything. I don't know. I don't even know if it's expensive or if it's not expensive. I don't believe that it is, but it was never something that my father, he was a single father. It was more cereal and hot dogs growing up. That's kind of what we grew up on, cereal and hot dogs.
Yeah, so I live near Austin, Minnesota, where the Spam Museum's located and then where they make Spam. So I've been asking all my guests just to see. It's been kind of fun. Yeah, it's either a strong yes, a strong no, or I've never had it. That's kind of the three.
So I'm not the only one who's never had it?
Actually, no, you're not. When you said that, I'm like, do I need to start like?
It's a bad name, but if you've never, I feel like sometimes people say no, but did they really try it? Have they really tried it?
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting because I mean I live close to where they make it and stuff, and we don't eat it a lot. But I mean, if you slice it and fry it up, it's not too bad. I mean, it's got a good taste to it. Now they have tons of different flavors too, which is interesting. But
well, it's a popular brand. It's been out. Yeah. How long has it been out there? It's been out there a while.
Well, I should know my history better if I'm asking this question. I'm pretty sure it came like one of the World Wars is when they started making it because they were shipping it to the troops and stuff. It's really big in Hawaii, and I believe that's from one of the wars where they sent a lot of it there, and the troops ate it, and then it's kind of stuck around. So it's been around for quite a while.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, maybe one day I'll get around to trying it.
There you go.
And then I'll have to message you what I think.
Yeah, you'll have to. I actually should do that. I should send out. Well, it could get expensive, but send it to people, and you guys can like taste it and send a video back of you tasting it for the first time or something.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute honor to be on your show, and thank you so much for all that you do with regard to inclusion and representation.
Yeah, thank you so much. To those listening, thank you all for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.